You see, guys, React code can be a little chaotic. It can be a little tornadic, if you will. And React forms are tornadic for a very good reason because we have this thing called the React form vortex. The way that React handles forms is incredibly unique and distinct to React. And let's just have a simple example of our search bar. Every single time that we type, we are enabling the onChange event handler. And when the event change handler fires, what is going to happen is that it is going to set our state. And each time that our state is set with the set name, with the setter function, boom, we are going to trigger a re-render, and this re-render is going to pass down our data to our value. So we pretty much have this cyclone, this vortex of data. But you may be asking yourself, well, if we're cycloning all this data and it's going around in a circle, what happens when we actually want to submit the form? When you submit the form, you enable another handler called onSubmit, and onSubmit is going to pass this data in the form of an event and the form of state to wherever you want to in your program. And in our example, we have a actual add stock button that we need to communicate form data to other parts of our app, mainly our portfolio component. And what's going to happen is we're going to click the add stock. It's going to communicate this form data up to our app. And this data is going to be stored within the state at the top of our component so that it can be communicated down to other parts, mainly our portfolio component. Also, we are going to refactor our search button so that we no longer need the actual onClick handler, and we can communicate everything through just a quick enter as opposed to having to click the actual search button. Anyway, let's go ahead, let's hop inside VS Code and let's do some coding. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a portfolio folder, and I'm going to create a portfolio subfolder where we are going to house the button that's going to be in charge of adding stocks to our portfolio. And if that doesn't make sense right now, it will here in just a second. So going to have add portfolio.tsx, and I'm going to have add portfolio CSS. So add portfolio.css. Okay, so now need to go ahead, bring in all of the snippet, go ahead just like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this add portfolio component and I'm going to add it to the individual card, because when we actually get stocks back from the API, we need to add them to the portfolio. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to go ahead, test this to make sure that it works and that we at least have something on the page. So if I go here, I'm going to type in Microsoft, go ahead, press the search button, and we have add portfolio at the bottom of our card. Looking good, but now comes the difficult part of actually wiring all of this up. So what I'm going to do, I like to start from the bottom and work my way up to the top. We are prop drilling, but a part of the game of React is just prop drilling. I think prop drilling just kind of comes along with it. And our goal now is to build the add portfolio component and get all of the logic out of it and get it into the app.ts so that everything can be communicated down. So to do that, I'm just going to build a form. So go here, we're going to have an onSubmit. So we'll say onSubmit, and we are going to create an on portfolio create. So when this portfolio is actually created, when this onSubmit is actually fired, this is going to be communicated up to our app.ts. And I'm going to go ahead, create one input, and this input does not even need to be seen. It can be a hidden input because the value is going to be communicated down in the form of a symbol. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, just hang on a second and it will all make sense here in just a second. So I'm going to go here. The on portfolio create is going to be communicated down. So on portfolio create, and this is going to be a symbol. And we are going to have on portfolio create, and we are going to set it to a synthetic event. So we'll pass in an E, and this will be a synthetic and it is going to return void. And for some reason, this is not going to come in, so we'll say on synthetic event. And we are also going to pass down a symbol, which is going to be a string. So that is going to be taken in, and that's where we are getting our symbol. Now what we need to do is we need to create a button. So the button is going to be just regular run-of-the-mill button, nothing fancy. The only thing that you need to be aware of is that this has to be a submit. If you change this to a button, it's not going to work. So make sure that you are creating a submit button, and we can go ahead and close that out, and we can just put add right there. Okay, now comes the sort of difficult part where we're going to have to prop drill all of this stuff up. So we're going to say on portfolio create. It's going to be on portfolio create. And we are also going to pass down the symbol, and the symbol is going to be given to us through this right here. So this is where we're actually going to get our symbol. It's going to be, once again, in the form of a string. Also need to communicate this down. So on portfolio create, and we also need to make our type accepted. So on portfolio create, it's going to be E synthetic event. Synthetic event. It's going to take a void. Go ahead, bring that in. Just like that. Okay, so that looks good. Now we need to go up to our actual card list, and we need to communicate these props down once again. Okay, so now we have an on portfolio create. We're going to pass it the on portfolio create. And we also need to add this up here. So say on portfolio create. It's going to be E synthetic event. It's going to return a void. Also need to go up to here, pass in the synthetic event, and that has an extra E. So we also need to pass the on portfolio create. And we don't actually need the symbol because the symbol is going to be created from the actual card list. Okay, so now we go up to our app, and here is the moment of truth. On portfolio create. So on portfolio create, then go up to here, and we need to actually create this function. So const on portfolio create, just like this. So E, we will pass it to E of synthetic event. So console.log. Okay, so that looks great. Let's go ahead and test it. So we go up here, bring this out, bring out our console. So we'll say Tesla, get some data back, go ahead and add. Oh, also forgot one thing. So this is very crucial. You need to add a prevent default. I actually forgot to add the prevent default. So make sure that you remember to add the prevent default or it's not going to work. So let's go ahead, refresh it. Hopefully this works, fingers crossed. Let's go here, and there we go. So we've got our event coming up. We're good to go. But next part, I'm going to refactor the search bar. So if you just want the search bar like it is, you can leave the search bar as it is, but I'm going to go the extra mile here in a second, and I'm going to refactor the search bar with a form so that we don't have to actually click this button and have this right here. So if you want to stick around for that, you can do that, but if you don't, this is totally optional. I'm just going to do it because I think it's going to make it look a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead inside of our forms here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to my search. Right now, the only thing that we have in order to actually send the data up is going to be an on-click, and I think it would be a lot better if we actually had a form in here so that we could do all of the work without having to click the button, and we can just submit a form. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create a fragment, and I'm going to go ahead and create a form. And the form, as usual, forms always have an on submit, and I'm going to call this on search submit. I'm going to go down here, going to create an input, of course, because we have to actually input a value. I'm going to call this search, and we'll call this on change. We're going to handle search change. Okay, that's looking good, but now what we need to do is we actually need to do a little bit of refactoring too with the naming, because we have more methods in here, we should probably be a little bit more explicit about which on click or which on submit is actually being changed. So I'm going to say this is an on search submit, and I'm going to say handle search change. And I'm also going to change all of these up. So the on click is now going to be on search submit. So I'm going to say on search submit, and it's going to take in synthetic event, say handle search change. It's going to be, since it's a handle change, it's just a regular change event. We actually don't have to even change that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my search component in my actual app, and I'm going to change this from on click. So I'm going to say on search submit, and I'm going to rename this function. So we'll go ahead and here call this on search submit. Got our search. Now we need to say on handle search change. So that looks good. Handle search change. So we've gotten all of that done. Now what we need to do is we need to go up and change our logic. Since this is no longer a click change, what we're going to do is we're going to have an on search submit. All of that's going to go through there. The next thing is, instead of just having the handle change up here, we're going to have the handle search change. And that should pretty much be it, except one other thing. When we actually do the on search submit, we now need to have a e.prevent default, just like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and test everything out, make sure everything is looking good. So I'm going to go into here, I'm going to say Tesla. Without a search button, we can now search. Also, let's go into here and let's type the ad. And we also get our ad for adding to our portfolio. We get the event. Now what we need to do is we need to actually create the list for our portfolio, get all of that state wired up, make everything look good, and we'll have a really good app before we start building on the back end. Anyways, hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.